You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Forget the lies, the money. We're in this together and through it all. They said nothing's forever, and they refuse to see the change in me. Why won't they wake up? Come on, come on, come on. Let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Well, here we are, episode 250 of Reliving the War. We've got Raw coming from Lafayette, Louisiana, while Nitro's in Wichita, Kansas. It's pretty awesome to reach 250 Reliving the War episodes. There's actually a lot more when you consider the unopposed shows, SmackDown shows, and Thunder shows, but I'll save the celebrations and patting myself on the back like Barry Horowitz until the final episode. Right now, there's work to be done, and you guys are here for the grabs, but I do want to take a moment to thank you guys for sticking around this long. I know the glory days of the Monday Night War are behind us, and a lot of folks only stuck around for the big matches and big moments. But you guys who watch every week are the real soldiers, the ones who didn't bail when the going gets tough. So thank you. You may have noticed that video releases have slowed down in the past week or so, but that's just because I'm planning my annual 2-week summer break and I'm stocking up on videos before leaving. This is to ensure there's stuff for you guys to watch when I'm gone. There's going to be no Reliving the War on the 17th and 24th of July, so please don't freak out and call me every name under the sun when there's no uploads. I'm doing my best to keep stuff on the channel even when I'm not physically at home and things are stressful enough as it is. There will be videos going up in Reliving the War's place, so if you see anyone commenting while wondering where the Raw and Nitro videos are, please give them a heads up because I plan on turning my phone off for a few weeks. We've got a jam-up couple this week, Matt and Heather. Matt's the lead guitarist for the band Knock for Six, and he sent me a ton of sweet photos of him shredding like an absolute hero while wearing his dojo shirt. Heather's an amazing wife, seeing as she bought Steve his shirt while buying herself the Saturday Night Fever shirt. So if you've got a wife like Heather, guys, then you know you've made it. Thanks to both of you, and enjoy this week's episode of Reliving the War. Vince Russo's in his office and he's talking to Scott Steiner on the phone. He says it's happening tonight and he tells Scott to relax, though he gets interrupted by Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett says Goldberg isn't here yet and Double J wants a piece of Billy Boy, but Russo says everyone wants a piece of Goldberg and it's all being taken care of. A quick cruiserweight title match then took place between champion Elix Skipper and challenger Chavo Guerrero. Lance Storm tried to get involved, though General Rection took care of our Canadian hero. Skipper still won the match after using his CFL ring, though the takeaway here is that we're looking at a Team Canada versus MIA feud moving forward. Russo then spoke with Scott again. He said it's time, and Scott thanked Vince while saying he owes him one. Goldberg has also arrived at the building, so all will be revealed when Russo calls Goldberg out live on Nitro. On Raw, WWF champion The Rock cuts a promo. Russo poorly addresses the thing I was complaining about last week, about how he stated he wouldn't be on TV, yet he showed up 6 days later. He says every time he leaves, he gets pulled back in, which, in short, is a terrible explanation. It means absolutely nothing. Before he can continue on, Goldberg shows up and he wipes out the terrible security force that Vince brought to the ring, and Russo challenges Goldberg to hit him. Vince says that would be breach of contract and it wouldn't be a great look for Goldberg, who apparently does everything for the kids these days. Russo then pulls out a release form. He says Goldberg can sign it right now, get paid in full, and he can show up on whatever show he wants next Monday, implying that he can show up on Raw if he wants to. I'd sign that sucker in a heartbeat, but Goldberg rips it up, one of the worst business decisions he's ever made. Russo understands that Goldberg wants to make his life a living hell, but Vince reminds Billy Boy that there's a few people who want to take him out tonight. Scott Steiner, in particular, wants to wreck Goldberg after what happened with Medeja last week, and when Russo makes the stupid mistake of mentioning Goldberg's girlfriend, Billy Boy grabs him by the neck. It's getting spicy, ladies and gents. Scott Steiner shows up on the Turnertron. He's standing outside Goldberg's hotel room, and he says this is payback for last week's Nitro. Scott's going to show Bill's girlfriend what it's like to be with a real man. I don't see Ming anywhere. And Goldberg rushes up the entranceway as Scott grabs Beth. My. Russo thinks this is great, he goes to leave the ring, but Booker T's music plays and it looks like Vince has another problem to deal with. On Thunder, Kevin Nash blindsided Booker T, so I guess he's turned heel again. And Booker wants Russo to send a message to Big Kev. Booker's coming after him as soon as Big Sexy shows up to Nitro. Vince says Booker T doesn't tell him what to do. It was Vince Russo who made Booker by giving him an opportunity. So Russo feels Booker's being ungrateful and he tells him to get out of the ring. This results in Russo taking an axe kick, which gets a great reaction from the audience. Goldberg leaves to rescue his woman. And Russo tells Chuck Palumbo that if Kevin Nash doesn't show up on time, then Chuck's getting a title opportunity tonight against Booker T. At least it's not Double J. Jerry Lawler's running late tonight. He's not here as WWF champion The Rock gets in the ring to cut a promo. Rock puts over Louisiana and he gets a few cheap pops. He says he's going to shove his jambalaya and gumbo covered boot up Triple H and Kurt Angle's candy asses after what they did to him last week on Raw. Rock says Hunter and Angle have similar goals. They both want to be WWF champion at SummerSlam. They both want to win the heart of the, quote, biggest piece of $2 rancid slut meat known as Stephanie McMahon. But Rock wants some payback tonight, and that's when Commissioner Foley shows up. Mick thinks Rock's temper's getting the better of him. He understands what Rock's going through, but Foley wants to give Rocky the night off for his own good. Before the WWF champion can say anything, Kurt Angle shows up along with Shane McMahon. And Kurt says Mick Foley's been trying to present the Olympic hero as a slime ball recently, but when Kurt hit Rock with a chair on SmackDown, which in turn allowed Triple H to pin the Great One, Angle showed he's a man of great integrity. Rock lost a match, Angle gained a friend. So out comes Triple H, and what do you know? Looks like Kurt Angle and Triple H are finally on the same page. Hunter says he's proud of Angle. Nothing will make you Triple H's friend faster than wrapping a chair around The Rock's head. And seeing as Hunter's family issues are now behind him, he wants to challenge The Rock to a WWF title match tonight on Raw. After all, Hunter did pin The Rock on SmackDown. Mick says it's unfortunate that Hunter's ears aren't as big as his nose because he would have heard that Rock's been given the night off. But the best friends right here can take on the Acolytes tonight on Raw, and as for Shane and Stephanie, Shane's going to face Steve Blackman for the hardcore title and Stephanie's going to defend her women's title against Lita. Stephanie seems more confident than Shane, so to make sure there's no messing around, Foley appoints a special referee for this main event women's title match, and that referee is The Rock. I thought he had the night off, but there you go. Jerry Lawler appeared on Raw with a surprise attack on Taz. Taz vs Lawler happens this week at SummerSlam, so the King's getting the early advantage before the pay-per-view. Jerry takes his seat for our next Raw match. It's the Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys, while Nitro presents Kwee and Paisley versus Corporal Cajun and Major Guns. The vast majority of the Nitro match featured the men in the ring, though Major Guns did learn a new move, a sunset flip. The boys took a lifetime setting up a catapult spot that saw Kwee getting launched into Paisley, and Guns then pulled off what Madden called the old butt in the face move. The match ended with Corporal Cajun launching Major Guns into Paisley. The spot lacked impact, but sure, you don't expect great things, do you? Kwee and Paisley attacked the winners after the bell, and it wasn't until after the match that I realised that Paisley must have left the artist formerly known as Prince Ikea. I just completely forgot about their partnership. This Sunday, the WWF presents the first ever TLC match, and we've got two teams competing in that match squaring off tonight on Raw. The tag champs are going to call the action from the commentary table, and Jeff Hardy was definitely the standout performer here. He had a lot of confidence when performing high risk moves, and he had no fear giving his body up when taking bumps. Just a lot of smooth work from Jeff here that made me realise how much the Hardy Boys have improved since getting regularly featured on TV. They're a very confident tag team now. As expected, the tag champs got involved when Edge hit Matt with a spear outside the ring. The Dudleys performed the 3D on Jeff back inside the ring, but Christian distracted Devon while Bubba took a chair shot from Edge. The Hardys ended up winning, though this match was just a very small teaser for what's going to happen this Sunday. Triple H and company are trying to work out some sort of strategy for their matches tonight, but they can't agree on which match they should focus on. Angle and Hunter want to talk about the Acolytes, Stephanie wants to talk about Lita, Shane's panicking about Steve Blackman, and he absolutely should be too. You're in a lot of trouble tonight, my boy. On Nitro, Tank Abbott was getting mad at 3 count messing up their dance routine, but he ended up getting attacked by the Dark Carnival. Courageous and company also got taken out, and Vampiro announced that this right here is Juggalo Championship Wrestling taking over WCW. He says the JCW World Championship is the only title that means something to him. That belt design looks kinda familiar, doesn't it? And according to Vampiro, he's been held back by the politics of WCW who won't let him show his true violent nature. I mean, didn't you just set fire to someone a few months ago? That not good enough for you, Vumpy Balls? He goes on to call out Steve Borden, the actor who plays the role of Sting. Sting apparently hasn't even begun to go to hell yet, and this feud with Sting isn't business to Vampiro, it's personal. WCW can't handle the domination of the Juggalo Nation, my god. And Tank Abbott says, nah mate, this is nothing but a bunch of virgins painting their faces and trying to act hard. Tank challenges Vampiro to a JCW title match tonight on Nitro, and we will see that match a bit later on. Next on Raw, Val Venis and Trish Stratus take on Crash Holly and Ivory. On Nitro, we've got a Natural Born Thrillers promo. Venis and Trish are facing Eddie Guerrero in China this week at SummerSlam, and Venis wanted Trish to get more experience before the pay-per-view. He's acting all high and mighty while saying this SummerSlam match needs to be 2-on-2 and not 2-on-1. China wanted to attack Trish and Venis early. Eddie told his mamacita she needs to calm down and wait until Sunday. So these two ended up watching the match backstage while Trish got more in-ring experience. She only performed a bulldog in this match, but it's better than nothing, I guess. In the end, Val performed a Blue Thunderbomb on Ivory, which allowed Trish to score a pinfall win. And China decided to sneak off so she could attack both Venis and Trish. When things didn't quite pan out, Eddie ran down to save his girlfriend. And so Eddie and China wanted revenge, and they demanded singles matches on Raw against their upcoming SummerSlam opponents. Mick Foley did not give these two their requested matches, but he did sweeten the SummerSlam match a little by making it an Intercontinental title tag team match. If China pins Venis or Trish, she'll become IC champion. Same applies if Eddie pins Venis or Trish, so Val's not in danger of losing that championship belt. On Nitro, above average Mike Sanders leads Sean Stasiak, Reno, Sean O'Hare and Mark Jindrak to the ring, and Mike says he and the boys have been watching WCW talent draw above average paychecks while the company receives below average ratings. While this has been going on, this group, formerly introduced as the Natural Born Thrillers, have been getting abused by a certain individual at the WCW power plant. I'm guessing he's referring to the Sarge. Sanders then introduces all the members of this new faction while also mentioning that Chuck Palumbo's a Natural Born Thriller, though he's currently getting ready to win the WCW Championship. This faction is faster, stronger and better looking than everyone in the back, according to Mike. And gotta say, Sanders is very confident on the stick for someone so new to the company. He's doing a good job here and he's not intimidated by the bright lights at all. Thanks to Vince Russo, opportunity has knocked for the Natural Born Thrillers, but this faction's going to kick the door down. But here comes the filthy animals to say that Mike Sanders and company have just stunk the joint out. Conan says none of these guys have paid their dues, they're wet behind the ears, they've never been on the road, they have no talent, and basically they've done nothing. Old K-Dog completely burying these guys in the space of about 20 seconds. The Animals want a 6-man tag against the NBT, and that match is scheduled next on Nitro. Rikishi vs Kane is our next match on Raw, while Nitro presents the Natural Born Thrillers versus the Filthy Animals. Kane explained on SmackDown that he turned on The Undertaker because the Big Red Machine's a monster, giving us one of the most empty excuses for a heel turn we've had in quite some time. And to show how much of a monster he is, Kane attacked his brother with a steel chair. Given that Kane's now trying to re-establish himself as a bad guy, I fully expected him to destroy Rikishi here, and destroy him he did. It started off well for Big Kish when he delivered a Samoan drop, but when the action went to the outside, Rikishi took a hard shot at the ring steps, and Kane then grabbed a chair. Inside the ring, the referee called for the bell after Rikishi took a shot, and the Big Goose took a further 2 shots right to the head. This made Jerry Lawler shout that Kane actually is a monster, just in case you didn't get the message. Too Cool tried to help Rikishi, but not only did the Right to Censor try to stop the boys, Scotty and the Grandmaster also got wiped out by Kane in the ring. A lot of unprotected chair shots right here and a lot of headaches, I'm sure. Kane eventually leaves the ring after doing all this damage, and the RTC get in the ring like 3 vultures so they can beat these guys up a bit more. We see 2 Stevie kicks followed by Buchanan's top rope leg drop, and Stevie Richards looks very pleased with how this all turned out. We will hear from Stevie and company a bit later on. So on Nitro, we've got Mike Sanders, Jindrak and O'Haire against Mysterio, Hoovy and Disco. Shawn and Mark show off some good double team work when taking out Juventud, though Jindrak had a few problems when Ray got tagged in. Disco and Sanders then did a little work, and it looks like Mike isn't too shabby in the ring himself, though he commits the crime of gimmick infringement when he shows off his own version of the Dancy knee. That kind of stuff will get you into trouble, Mr. Sanders. O'Haire messes up when trying to land a somersault from the top rope. You can sense his frustration after the move, though he does stop Mysterio coming off the top soon afterward, and he ends up planting Ray with a power slam followed by a sit down powerbomb. So far this match has been good, and we've been missing action like this on Nitro for quite some time. The Animals get a break when O'Haire and Jindrak mess up, allowing Juventud to come in and show off what he can do. Disco and Hoovy fancy themselves the new Hardy Boys when they pull off Poetry in Motion, and this gets followed up with Ray dishing out Bronco Busters, and the Animals seemingly have it all wrapped up. Even Tigris pulls off a Bronco Buster as Ginger Ref loses control of the match. The match ends with Disco and Sanders getting left all alone in the ring, and Mike wins after delivering his finisher, the 3.0, above average grade point you see. To add insult to injury, Tigris takes a Shanton bomb, plays stupid games, wins stupid prizes. Though Mike Sanders was the standout right here, and he must have been pleased with both his promo work and his ring work. Bill, Biker, Michael, Liker, Goldberg's reached his hotel. Better get in there and save your bird, Billy boy. Chuck Palumbo also thanks Russo for giving the Natural Born Thrillers an opportunity, and he says he's going to kick the door down when opportunity knocks. So I guess he didn't listen to Mike Sanders' promo. Either that or he's not very original. Chuck's heading to the ring right now to face Booker T for the world title, while over on Raw, Triple H and Kurt Angle take on the APA. And what I'm noticing here is that the previous Natural Born Thrillers match and this Palumbo vs Booker T match have both been given a lot of TV time, nearly 20 minutes in total, which is very, very rare for WCW these days. Vince Russo comes out to serve as our special referee, which means Booker's in a lot of trouble. Booker T with a spinning back kick followed by a suplex. He performs a jackknife cover after a spine buster, but Russo refuses the count. So Book gets in Russo's face, and this turns out to be a bad move. Palumbo attacks from behind, Booker takes a hook kick, and of course Russo gives Palumbo a fast count that Booker does kick out of. Booker gets another opportunity to pin his opponent. Again, Russo refuses the count. So we continue on with a power slam from Chuck before Book gets his chin squeezed in a very, very painful manner. The champ fights back with his signature forearm and a back suplex. This gets followed up with a flapjack, and the crowd goes nuts for a spin-a-rooney and a Harlem sidekick. With Palumbo out cold, the Natural Born Thrillers run down to beat Booker up. Here comes Big Vito for the save. If you want someone saving your ass, you're obviously going to choose Big Vito. Vito delivers a beatdown with his trusty stickball bat, but wait up, here comes big sexy Kevin Nash. Booker's upcoming Fall Brawl opponent teases that he's going to take out Russo, but instead he hits Booker with a chair shot, and this allows Palumbo to win via pinfall. Granted, it was a fast 3 count, but it looks like Chuck Palumbo is the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Out comes Ernest Miller with his personal assistant Miss Jones, and yes, we're now going to pretend that Ernest Miller can override Vince Russo, because, get this, Miller says Eric Bischoff made him the commissioner while Vince Russo is just a writer. You can see the issue here, can't you? Why can't the writer just write the kayfabe commissioner off, or better yet, appoint a different commissioner? Miller says Bischoff gave him the stroke, which does sound quite erotic, but Kat says Palumbo is not the champion. He orders the Thrillers to get out of the ring, he announces that Booker T is still champion, and Big Brave Booker says he can't accept the belt under these circumstances. So the match gets restarted. Russo is going to commentate and Miller is the new referee. So now we get to hear Russo screaming into the headset, but thankfully it's not for long. Booker performs the axe kick followed by the Harlem sidekick. Booker then wins the match after a bookend, and that's how it all ended. I hate that the focus was taken off Palumbo and he had to share the spotlight with Russo, Nash and Ernest Miller. Again, Chuck has a lot of potential too, and I feel like a clean loss after a 10-minute match would have worked out a whole lot better for him. So did Triple H and Kurt Angle work together, and did they really put their differences aside for this tag team match against the Acolytes? Yes they did. Things were a bit shaky though when Angle took Farouk's spinebuster and Hunter took Bradshaw's fallaway slam. It appeared that Kurt and Hunter didn't really want to get in the ring and they complained a little when getting tagged in, but they quickly realised they'd have to work together if they didn't want to keep taking double team moves like this. It's a clean victory for the boys after Hunter saved Kurt from taking a Dominator and Farouk fell victim to a pedigree. Angle and Hunter gave each other a hug and they seemed to be happy with how the match played out. Though after the bell, things didn't look so jovial when the APA attacked Angle while Triple H didn't seem to care all that much. Hunter had the opportunity to get in the ring and help out his partner, but he decided not to do it and instead Angle took a double spinebuster and an assisted powerbomb. Kurt gets backstage and he's mad at Helmsley, but the devious Triple H uses Kurt's friendship with Stephanie to his advantage. Instead of worrying about himself, Kurt should really be thinking of Stephanie's match with Lita right now. If Kurt's going to go back to being all selfish, then so be it, but right now he'd be much more useful as a team player. Kurt relents, he says okay, fine, so Triple H just got one over on the Olympic gold medalist. Bill Goldberg rushes up the stairs and it looks like he's going to fall over. He gets in his hotel room and there's a message written on the mirror. It says, "Bill, I'm gooning all over your girlfriend, LOL." Scotty Steiner's heading back to the arena, so it's a wasted journey for Goldberg. Better start your tricycle up again and get back to Nitro ASAP. The Right to Censor are going to talk about their attack on Rikishi next on Raw, while Nitro presents Tank Abbott vs Vampiro. And we've got Shaggy 2 Dope and Violent J taking over commentary duties because this is a JCW takeover after all. It always fascinates me when a company's championship belt gets defended in another company's show, and I know a lot of you are saying, well, JCW isn't a real wrestling promotion, but that is simply incorrect. They still run shows to this very day, which also means they've been in business a lot longer than bigger, more well-known promotions. The ICP refer to Tank Abbott as Tank Floppage and Frank Rabbit, and in all seriousness, Tank Abbott still hasn't improved in the ring at all. Not a lot going on here, which is a shame seeing as it's a unique championship bout we have here, but we do have Charles Robinson taking a spectacular bump when Vampiro ducked a punch. This naturally leads to the ICP getting involved in the match. Tank tries to fight back, but when Muta shows up, he takes the green mist. From here, the Dark Carnival give Abbott a beating and the match just randomly ends, so I guess Vampiro's still JCW champion. 3 Count try to help Tank to his feet, but Abbott doesn't want no stinking help. He tells the boys they'll leave him alone, so maybe this relationship's gonna fall apart. What has Tank Abbott got if he hasn't got 3 Count? I'll tell you what he's got. Nothing at all. Stephen Richards says the RTC will fight the good fight against anyone, and he does mean anyone who offends morality. Rikishi was one of those offenders. His appearance is inappropriate and the Big Ooze sets a bad example. I mean, kids could watch Raw and they could grow an ass the size of Rikishi's. Kids could run around and try to give each other stink faces. So Rikishi sends a bad message, and that's why he was beaten up earlier tonight. Commissioner Foley comes out, he says shrimping ain't easy because the RTC put him off his food. And Mick says people have the right to watch whatever show they want and they also have the right to believe in whatever they want. But the Commissioner likes fun, and every time the Right to Censor are in the ring, well, they aren't very fun. Foley therefore books a match for SummerSlam, Too Cool and Rikishi versus the Right to Censor. Stevie's a bit surprised that Foley's putting him in this match, and that's because he's in danger of getting a giant bunghole shoved in his face. But Stevie has no choice and he will compete this Sunday at the pay-per-view. Kurt Angle says he's leaving the arena, but Stephanie wants him to stay. He was set on leaving Raw for the evening, but he's easily swayed by Hunter's wife. Shane McMahon, meanwhile, has a plan for his upcoming match against Sensei Blackman, and oh shit!
Have you ever had sex? I haven't felt great. It felt so good when I did it with my penis. A girl let me do it. It literally just happened. Having sex can make a nice man out the meanest. Oh, hey.
If Rodders and the Gasman want to become heroes of the WWF, then they have an opportunity to do so right now. These men were both hardcore champions in the past. They could leave Raw tonight as hardcore champion again. All they have to do is attack Blackman right now while he's in deep meditation and job done. Only problem is, Steve's a lethal weapon and he takes out both boys with sidekicks and mudfug kicks, and Shane gets chased out of the dressing room as the plan falls to pieces. A valiant effort from Rodney and Pete Gas. On Nitro, the reluctant hardcore champion Norman Smiley had a title defense against Brian Clark, and midway through getting a beating, Smiley decided to get in Brian Adams' face, which of course led to our main man getting wrecked. Chronic wanted to perform the high times through a table. They set up the furniture, but when Charisma Vacuums, Ron and Don Harris show up, it was Chronic's turn to get wrecked. Clark took an H-bomb through the table and the Harris brothers pushed Norman on top of him, so Smiley wins again and he still has to hold the WCW Hardcore belt. Ginger referee tells Norman to take his championship belt and Norman's like, man, do I have to? Chris Jericho gets a shot at Saturn's European title next on Raw, while Nitro presents Big Vito vs Kevin Nash. Yeah, Vince Russo wasn't happy with Vito interfering in the championship match earlier, and Russo also made it clear that he gave Vito a job when the WWF didn't want him back. So Vito got put in a match against Big Sexy, and he tried to convince himself that he's got a chance during a pre-match promo. He said he's been knocked down before, but he keeps getting back up, and so he went to the ring where he got destroyed by Kevin Nash. Now, he did get in a good amount of offense, including a suplex, a diving elbow drop, and a diving headbutt, but you'd be silly to think the number one contender was going to do the job for Big Vito. Even if Kev wasn't the number one contender, I still don't think he'd be doing the job right here. Kevin performs a jackknife and he looks for another one. Absolutely fair, may I add, and he's not breaking any rules. Though here comes Booker T to cause a DQ finish, and WCW messed up big time here. There's a large portion of fans booing Booker T because they were enjoying seeing Nash beating up Vito just moments prior. Booker ends up taking Nash out, but do consider the terrible booking of this match. No one really cares for Vito. Nash may be a heel, but he's infinitely more popular than his opponent, so fans are naturally going to root for Big Kev, and they weren't happy when the guy they cheered for got attacked. We also had interference in our European Championship match. Saturn showed a mean streak in the early going, though Jericho hit Perry so hard that Chris fell to the mat too. Perry pulls off a fireman's carry drop and Jericho replies with a jumping forearm. Perry sees a lion salt attempt coming, so he counters with a back suplex. Jericho fires back with a diving back elbow from the top rope, and that's when Chris Benoit interferes and we've got a DQ finish. The brawl between Jericho and Benoit is quite long here, with referees breaking the guys up only for them to start fighting again. This happens a few times as the WWF try to build some excitement for the upcoming Jericho vs Benoit 2 out of 3 Falls match at SummerSlam, and you just know that one's going to be good no matter what way the WWF tries to hype it up. Triple H is showing his wife some sick wrestling moves, and Kurt Angle thinks this is all a joke. Angle's an Olympic caliber athlete while Hunter's a pretend fight wrestler. So Angle's way more suited to show Steph a few moves. Hunter's a 4-time WWF champion, Kurt Angle's a gold medalist, so Stephanie's spoiled for choice, though she does end up choosing Kurt Angle. In the interest of everyone working together, Steph thinks her husband should sit in the cuck chair and let Angle do his thing. Triple H says cool, but he won't be sitting in any chair, he'll wait outside while Mr. Integrity here works on his wife. Shane McMahon, meanwhile, wants to have a word with Trish in private. Either he's got a devious plan or he's a very, very lonely man. Over on TNT, Scotty's brought Beth the ring rat to Nitro and she's freaking out. Scott says he doesn't care about this woman, she's just a pawn so Big Poppa Pump can get his hands on Goldberg, stating the painfully obvious right there, Scotty. Ernest Miller says Lance Storm has to defend his US title in a tag team match, and even Lance's tag team partner can pin him to win the championship. Why not book a 3-on-1 match? I have no idea, but Lance and his mystery partner are taking on Mike Awesome and General Rection next on Nitro. On Raw, we've got Steve Blackman vs Shane McMahon. Lance wants these American fans to show some class while the Canadian national anthem plays in the arena, but we aren't in Canada this week, guys. The fans in Kansas boo Lance, and as always, O Canada gets interrupted by a superstar coming to the ring. Jeff Jarrett's going to serve as Lance's tag team partner, and I'm actually glad to see this. I can get behind Jarrett going after the US Championship just as long as he stays away from the main events. General Rection wants to get some payback for Lance interfering in the Loco vs Skipper match earlier on, but he ends up eating a super kick after getting distracted by Double J. We see a shoulder block and a drop kick from Storm, and Jarrett ends up breaking his own partner's cover when Storm goes for a pin. Awesome wants tagged in, but Rection won't do it. Instead, the big man goes up for an elbow drop and he misses his target. This allows Lance to lock in the Maple Leaf, but Awesome did get a blind tag before the move got applied. So Lance ends up taking a pop-up sit-down powerbomb and Jeff has to save the match once again. Awesome and Jarrett fight on the outside. Rection delivers the no laughing matter moonsault. The referee's too busy and he doesn't notice the pin, so Elix Skipper shows up and he breaks Rection's cover with a leg drop. Awesome gets in the ring, he goes for an awesome bomb on Lance. Double J grabs his guitar, and even though he was aiming for Lance, he ends up hitting Awesome. Lance wins via pinfall, and nothing to complain about here really. Allowing Jeff to potentially pin Lance did make things a little different, in all fairness. Steve Blackman gets jumped by Test backstage because that's the only way someone can get the upper hand on Sensei Blackman. This is supposed to be Shane McMahon versus Blackman, but we now know why Shane wanted to talk to Trish earlier on. We go all the way through the audience and Steve gets launched over the barricade, and our hero takes a few shots with a trash can lid. This is ridiculous. Inside the ring, Steve supercharges a trash can and he uses it to stop an aerial attack. Sensei's now got it all under control and he's making it look very easy, so here comes Albert to help Test out. You're gonna need a full army to stop Steve Blackman, guys. What we didn't hear on TV is the country music playing from Albert's pocket radio, and this weakens Steve considerably. He is able to kick a fire extinguisher and he avoids getting blinded, and this also breaks the pocket radio, which allows Steve to grab his Eskrima sticks. Now you're fucking in for it, boys. Steve Blackman delivers offense that the human brain simply can't process, and he even avoids Albert's Baldo bomb by using the sticks of mass destruction. Steve's got it all under control again, so here comes even more people to try and tame the lethal weapon. Edge and Christian are here, they manage to put Steve on the mat. This of course doesn't last for too long, but the tag champs also brought a pocket radio, and Willie Nelson's dulcet tones make Sensei's brain begin to slowly melt. Perfect time for Shane McMahon to make an appearance and crack a kendo stick over Blackman's head. Can't believe I'm saying this, but Shane McMahon wins via pinfall, and therefore Shane McMahon is our new hardcore champion. I was just about to end Reliving the War right here and tell you guys the series is now over, but Mick Foley informed Shane that Blackman's getting a rematch at SummerSlam. Shane thinks he's being smart by having Edge and Christian pin him so he loses the hardcore belt, but Mick won't count the pinfall because he doesn't care much for the 24/7 rule. Shane will keep that belt right up to SummerSlam and he will face Sensei Blackman once again. Because of their involvement in our last match, Mick Foley booked Edge and Christian in a match against DX, and even if the champs lost, they still had to compete this week in the first ever TLC match. Edge and Christian ended up running away when the Dudley boys set up a table outside the ring, but even before this happened, the DX boys were having some issues. This friendly competition X-Pac and Road Dogg have been having with each other has now begun affecting their in-ring work, seeing as they couldn't decide who should deliver the final blow to Christian. And then, after Edge and Christian ran away, the lads started arguing, and X-Pac accidentally sent his friend through the Dudley boys table. This is going to lead to a Road Dogg vs X-Pac match at SummerSlam this week, and if you want to see the SummerSlam video right now, then it's available for channel members and Patreon supporters. Just on that note, guys, Reliving the War is not behind a paywall. You're seeing videos tagged with members only because these are the early uploads available for folks who support the channel. The public YouTube release schedule is the same as it's always been, so don't worry, and you don't need to send me emails about this. You're getting the exact same amount of content as you always did. Raw ends this week with Stephanie versus Lita for the Women's Championship. On Nitro, Scotty Steiner brings Goldberg's bird to the ring. So Scott drags Beth to the ring and he says there's only a few things in life he cares about, one of those things being his freaks. Goldberg crossed the line when he jackhammered Medeja. Scott says he, and I quote, wouldn't be caught dead with a bitch this ugly, my god. And this lady right here is nothing but bait. Bait for Bill Goldberg. Tony Jabroni apologises as Goldberg makes his way to the ring, but wait, it's a trap, and Goldberg walked right into it. Double J attacks from behind, and forget whatever praise I gave WCW for booking Jeff in a US title match earlier on. Here he is again, in the last segment of Nitro, getting involved when he's got no reason to be here. Steiner and Jeff deliver a beatdown while Rat Beth sits in the corner being totally useless. Booker T runs down to even the odds, and you know what that means. Here comes Kevin Nash, and so we've now got Nash and Steiner realigning with each other for like the 100th time in WCW. It's actually a joke at this point. Rick Steiner's here too. He dishes out shots with his rubber lead pipe and he provides some handcuffs because he always travels with handcuffs. The babyfaces get secured to the ring ropes. Scott drags Beth to the middle of the ring and this poor woman gets put in the Steiner recliner. Mate, turnabout's fair play. What makes this any different than Goldberg attacking Medeja last week? Beth gets knocked out, Goldberg takes a few shots from Big Poppa Pump too. These two are going to face each other at Fall Brawl, so already it's very, very personal. On Raw, Triple H has had enough. Kurt Angle's been putting his moves on Steph for way too long, and Hunter calls Angle the slowest teacher in the world. Kurt acts all innocent, and Steph says Kurt's been the perfect gentleman, and Angle says he's only trying to help. Yeah, right. Both Triple H and Angle bring Stephanie down to the ring for this Women's Championship match. This is the second time Raw's featured women in the main event so far in Reliving the War, but to be fair, we've got a lot of dudes involved in this one too. Lita takes Stephanie down before throwing her in the corner for a hair pull takeover. That Olympic training obviously didn't work. Steph takes a hip toss, she almost brains herself when taking a Hurricane Rana, and The Rock threatens to slap Angle if he doesn't get off the apron right now. This gives Triple H the opportunity to go after Lita, but the cameras totally missed it. Still, the Hardy Boys come out to make sure Triple H doesn't mess around again. Matt and Jeff are going to hang around to see Steph's incredible corner offense, though again, Stephanie almost brains herself when trying a monkey flip. Give her credit, her DDT looked absolutely fine. She complains to Rock after the 2 count, but Rock tells her to talk to the hand. So Little Miss McMahon tries to get violent on Lita, but she ends up taking a head scissor takedown. Steph misses a corner clothesline by a mile and she pays for it dearly. Lita's Tornado Bulldog wasn't very crisp either, but fans are just happy to see Steph get hurt. Lita gets the chance to pull off her moonsault, but that dirty dog Kurt Angle stops it from happening. So the Hardy Boys go after Angle and Triple H joins in too. Matt and Jeff get taken care of. Kurt tries to give Stephanie the Women's Championship belt to use as a weapon. Rock runs over and he pulls Angle into the ring, and Triple H runs over to help out his new best friend. Unfortunately, Kurt ends up accidentally hitting his new best friend with the Women's Championship belt, so I guess the buddies are gonna break up. Angle takes a rock bottom, Stephanie takes a spine buster, Rock tells Lita to go upstairs, and go upstairs she did. Stephanie takes the moonsault as the crowd goes nuts, and Lita pins Stephanie to become the new women's champion. The match was very rough, but you can't argue with the final result. Fans are jumping for joy as Lita carries the championship out of the ring, and Lita 100% deserved that championship based on her popularity alone. She's also one of the most capable female performers the WWF has right now, and unfortunately her opponent didn't give Lita a whole lot to work with. Still, fans are happy, and that's all that matters. I didn't think much of either show this week if I'm honest, so I'm calling it a tie. The Raw matches were just decent, and the reason I'm not calling Nitro a total failure this week is because a lot of time was spent highlighting new superstars, and that's what WCW needs to focus on moving forward. They really should have been focusing on this since 1998, but I am excited for the natural born thrillers, and even if the match played out terribly, I am happy that Chuck Palumbo got a title shot. Same old story with Nitro though, they get one thing right and about 7 things wrong. Nitro wasn't necessarily better than Raw, but I don't think Raw was necessarily better than Nitro either. Raw's on 144 points, Nitro's on 81, and we have now got 24 ties. In the TV ratings, Raw got a 6.2, Nitro got a 2.6. The biggest party of the summer comes up next, and I will be covering the show as usual. SummerSlam 2000 features some really memorable moments from the Attitude Era, so I hope you come over and check out the video this Sunday. We've got Shane McMahon vs Steve Blackman, Road Dogg vs X-Pac, the first ever TLC match, the Triple Threat WWF Championship match featuring The Rock, Triple H and Kurt Angle, and you just know that this love triangle between Hunter, Steph and Kurt is somehow going to play into this main event match. It's a good pay-per-view, and we need a good pay-per-view after New Blood Rising, so join me on Sunday and we'll check it out. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for tuning in to 250 head-to-head episodes of Reliving the War. Please take care.